Hi, I'm John Stevens.
This is Matt Russell.
And this is Pod Have Mercy.
This is Pod Have Mercy.
Today, as we record this, our good friend Matt Russell has left the country because of the presidential election. And I don't think he'll ever come. No, he's not. He has taken some time off, which he needs, well-deserved break. So Marlon Lizama is here with me. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Marlon, our resident b-boy, creative, artiste, iconoclast,
poet,
teacher,
word arranger,
influencer. How many words can I come up with in a short amount of time, Marlon? I don't know. You doing okay, by the way?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good. Today's a good day.
Today is a good day. We're not going to do that
day.
one. We did the Beastie Boys, but not Ice Cube.
Today's a good day.
Tell him about your shoulder.
Oh, well, I was having a good day, but then Jeff, I got a slight tear on my shoulder because I had a couple of young guys go to my house to train with me.
Yeah, so you tried to show out like it was.
And I forgot that
Like
every single one of those guys was 21 years old, and I'm not 21.
How old are you now, Marlon?
I'm 39 years old.
And when you were traveling the world with Javikoro?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 17 years old.
Just wait till you're 50, dude. When you're 50.
Yeah.
And the problem is guys never think, they never grow old enough to think, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, we always think we can get down there and do it. I'm sorry.
That's how, yeah. And
but I'll bet you still showed them up.
Well, the craziest part about it is these kids come over to train with me, but they like still see me as the guy that they first, got inspired by.
Like, and there's Marlon.
But I don't tell them that I'm
on
not.
YouTube, and you're like, yeah, it's 20.
But I don't tell them that my back hurts. I don't tell them that.
You have to graduate. You have to become like the wise. You watch the old kung fu movies. The guy, he sits there and he just, with his Fu Manchu, and he just sits there, and they come and they want to fight him and test him, and he just speaks wisdom. He just spits mad wisdom. And then if he ever does have to fight, he doesn't really ever fight. He just uses his wisdom to keep him in place.
I'm just going to hug, I'll hold them.
Yeah.
But don't say anything.
What you need is the safe, move that you can but that doesn't hurt you.
I got a ton of those, but they're not impressive.
Yeah, but you don't need to impress. You have YouTube.
John, it's because I'm Latino. And some about Latino men, we just do not know how to just take a round off.
Yeah, see, I'm an old white man, so I'm just if I had videos of me doing what you used to do, I'd be carrying it around on my phone. It's hey, did you see what I did back in the day? Look at this. Check this out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you do it now? Well, I could, but I'm not going to. Just check this video out. Hold on, I'll send you some videos. I'll send you my collection. Can I airdrop you right now?
The funny part is that Facebook becomes a cruel thing because after a while, it just sends you reminders of what you used to do.
Yeah, here's your reminder from 10
7 years ago, you won in France, and now your back hurts. It's just horrible.
Mine. There's no accomplishments on mine, unfortunately, but it does show me pictures of myself from 7 years ago, and it just screams, "You used to not have gray hair."
Nice,
So, I'm glad you're here. We're going to talk today. We're just, so today is election day. We are recording this on Tuesday, November 3rd, and it is election day. But you know what? If you are having a lot of anxiety or concern or fear or uncertainty or whatever, come on, Charlie, bring the coffee about the election day. I'll just tell you that the last 2 weeks, Matt and I talked a lot about spiritual disciplines and how to deal with anxiety and coping mechanisms for high stress and elections. So go back and listen to the last 2 weeks. If you need that this week, today, tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. If it's, drags out all week or whatever, it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Exhale. It's going to be okay. So I thought today what would be interesting is for, us just to chat about whatever we want to chat about, but also found this fascinating article that I thought, since Matt was gone and you were going to be with us and you are kind of our Chapelwood local creative, just use that word creative.
I love that word.
Just you
word.
are a creative, that we would talk about creativity in the midst of monotonous life, pandemic, or maybe it's not about pandemic for you, but just get stuck in a rut. Thought you'd have a lot to add on that, because I'm always looking for creativity.
Yeah.
But we started before we were recording talking about the cars we used to have when we were growing up. So what what was your first car?
My high school car was a 1984
You got a picture of
Buick
this, Jeff?
Riviera. And
Did it look like that?
It was cream. Oh, it was great. It was cream, and it was amazing. And it caught on fire.
Are you serious?
At the end
Did
of
you
its
have white
life.
wall tires?
Yes.
Do you know that people don't even know what white wall tires are anymore? Young people don't.
Because young people are the worst. No, I think like I had those, but I don't ever remember cleaning my car. Like it's just almost like you thought you never knew what you had until like now looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I clean that car? It would have been cool.
That is a car. Do you know I would drive that car right now?
It's almost a Cadillac. It's like almost a Cadillac. It was great, and it costed me $650.
That's the great thing.
It was
is
$600.
what we paid for our cars in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, of course, there's generation before us that said $650. I paid $65.
Yeah. So can I tell you what car I saw you in?
All right. So you said that you envisioned the kind of car. Well, it's interesting because before you say that, I grew up, and starting at 14 years old, I worked on the car dealership.
Okay.
All the way through high school and even the first couple of years of college. Most people don't know this, but one summer I was a used cars salesman.
That's
You're supposed to go, yeah, I can see that.
I can see that.
So anyway, so you were going to tell me, because of that, I actually owned a lot of cars from 16 to 25 years old. So which one do you think you see me in?
So I can see you in, and it's might turn awkward. Like this whole day is going to be awkward between us, because I think when I tell you this, you're going to be like, why would you think that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to mess with you, and you're going to wake up at 2 a.m. and like, why would he think that?
It's not going to mess with me.
So there was a Mustang, right? There was the Mustangs.
Mm-hmm.
You were a Maverick man.
A Maverick man.
Do you know what the Maverick is?
He's a Maverick man.
Can you
That's not it.
That's not it. A Maverick car?
That's a Maverick right there.
Ford Maverick.
Yes.
That's kind of sick.
All right, so
And it's not quite the Mustang.
no, it's not. But you
But
know
it's a
what?
Maverick.
I will say you are relatively within the ballpark. So if you see that picture of a Maverick, now it wasn't my first car, but my second car was a 1971 Ford Torino.
Oh, that's just showing off right there. That is a nice one.
Wow.
Is there a
Was it
brown one?
fixed up?
Is there a brown one up there? Yeah, the brown, like the second one. Oh, brown. He just put it in.
Brown.
He just put in brown now.
Like
they're
with a
all
hard
brown.
with a hard BR.
That's the only, all right, so look at
Brown.
that trunk.
Look at that
trunk.
car.
I remember you could actually carry like 7 golf bags or multiple bodies. That was like if you ran out of space.
Multiple bodies.
Just pull up one that's in nicer condition. That one's like destroyed.
So you had a nice.
All right, so
a
look
nice
at this.
one?
Yeah, so look at this. So the door was huge and heavy, but you see the little back glass pane window, the little triangle? It had its own little roll that rolled down too.
Ooh.
So it was open all the way. And actually the back seat, it was one single bench seat across the front.
Is that the
Which was
Starsky?
great when you were on a date, because she could sit right in the middle,
Heyo.
right next to you. Yeah, see? Single bench seat.
Is that the Starsky and Hutch car? I think it is, right?
A Torino? I don't know.
I think it is.
What Starsky and Hutch had. But
I think it is.
Those are memories.
Did you get to pick that color?
No, I didn't pick the color.
Okay, because that's like.
now let's bring it down.
I don't want a
so now
silver.
when you see
I
this
don't want
car,
white.
when you see this car, do you think, does that make me cool or uncool?
That is, Well, you kind of lose a point for the brown, but
I didn't pick the color.
But it's super. It is cool.
Remember,
It's-
I worked at a car dealership, so whatever one they had that was the cheapest one, that was the one. I think I paid $500 for that car, something like
Wow.
that.
Oh, that's a deal.
So
That's a
my
deal.
first car, look up a 1969 VW Bug.
Oh, nice.
Beetle, yeah. It was
That's
a
the-
Beetle. Baby blue right there, baby blue.
That's the Mexican
Wow.
taxi.
All right, so
That's Mexico City taxi.
you can
right
make
there.
that joke.
That's a Mexico City taxi right there.
So my very first car, I think I paid $300.
Oh my god.
It had a hole in the floorboard, but it was someone had traded it in. And so I drove that car for about not quite a year, but that was my first car was a baby. It was baby blue.
Wow.
Well, we're in interesting. You know this. We're in crazy days. The thing about this whole pandemic, it's like everything is disrupted. We're trying to find like our place in this new normal. I don't even like to call it new normal because it's not going to last. But do you ever feel like things are like it's Groundhog Day or it's this monotony or whether it's work or play or whatever? And maybe you don't because you're more creative spirit. But I know when it comes to just life and family,
Yeah.
like the pandemic sort of breeds in me just this, like I'm like that hamster running on that little wheel in
Yeah.
a cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been thinking about this a lot lately, my wife and I, and something that's so crazy to me is how fast human beings adapt to situations. And like, I don't know how long it took you to like where you're like, man, this is real. Like, I got to take this serious. Like, this is what's going to happen. And I think it hit me in May. And it took a long time. I think that's a long time for it to hit me, I think. I don't know about you.
It was fun at the beginning. It was like an adventure. It was like a sleepover.
Yeah.
Or going to camp.
Yeah. So,
And then it's like, okay, well, this is going to last longer than I thought.
well, in May, we were supposed to go to Machu Picchu for my birthday.
Really?
Me and my wife and I. And we were so excited. We had everything planned, everything prepaid. And I think once they told us, you guys can't go, nobody can go anywhere, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And like for the first time in my life, I got so claustrophobic. And like, I started like having a little panic attack about it. Like, not being able to leave the country, which is a crazy idea because a lot of people don't think like that. I think like that. Like as
Well,
long
you
as
traveled a lot
Yeah.
when you were young. Too.
and I still want to continue to travel. And I think like for me is as long as the borders are open, everything is good. And the second that you can't leave, it freaks me out. Like it's so frightening to me.
I think some people are the opposite. They're like, oh, everything's shut down. Good. I'll just stay right here.
And I
You know what I mean?
And I think that's what fed me for so long is just like going on these adventures, meeting all these different people, and finally getting to do things with my wife like that are huge adventurous things like that are outside our kids. And it freaked me out. So in May, it hit me so hard. Like where I was like, oh my gosh, like we're here. Like we're here.
I remember somebody said jokingly, they said your U.S. passport is worthless. It's meaningless because you couldn't travel to any country in the world. There was like maybe 2 or 3
Yes.
where we can, even still, a lot of them you can't travel to unless you quarantine for a period of time.
And the U.S. passport is like the golden ticket, right? Like that's like the...
Yeah, you got a blue passport.
You
when
go
travel.
anywhere in
Yeah.
the world. And I know this because for a long time, I traveled with a Salvadorian passport and a green card. So you want to know the differences between having an American passport and another
lived it.
passport it's night and day. And so like when someone says that, it's so crazy because that's what people strive for is to get that blue passport, and it's so crazy.
Well, it was we found this great article. We were passing back and forth and talking about it, and it was like, how do you, the thing about monotony. I went through a roller coaster. I'm still going through it. It's not done, but You go through there, it's like camp, it's exciting. Then I think, especially in Houston in June and July, we hit this huge crest of everything. It was real scary. The hospitals were full and everything was going on. And then you start to get depressed.
Yeah.
It's just like, we can handle anything for a short period of time, but it's hard when you don't know when it's going to end. Like if you tell me, John, it's going to be really hard for the next 2 months, but after that, it's going to be good. We can make that happen. But when you don't have a finish line, suffering without meaning, that's where despair comes from. Despair is suffering minus meaning. So you just feel like you're suffering and there's no purpose to it. There's no meaning. That's when you start getting despair. And I think that's why in our society and in our culture, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of grief and a lot of despair because people are trying to figure out what's the purpose of this.
Yeah. What just symbolism, right? Like when you go and you see parks and they're locked down and you see the yellow tape, you can't come into this playground, things like that. Like things that like, no, this can't be real. Like this can't be happening. Like that's what really gets to you. And I think that's what feeds you. And it's like this little bomb that goes off of like, oh my gosh, like this is too real. Like this is too real for me. And then you can't go to church. You can't, these things that are supposed to feed you. And all of a sudden you just can't do it. I remember there was last year I would run at Memorial Park. And they had a conversation whether should we close down the park because people are not running with masks. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And I remember I'm just like, we can't run outside. Like that was so bananas. Like that was so bananas to me. Like we're running away from each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're like, it was so bananas.
Talk about context. A friend of mine was telling me, it's like, so I went back to Georgia several weeks back and I put my mask on to go into the restaurant like we do in Houston. And they were like, no, you don't have to put that away. We don't have to wear that. Grocery stores, it's recommended, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
And so we're standing around waiting for a table around all this group of people. And I kind of got nervous. I was like, there's nobody wearing a mask. But then a friend of mine was in California and he went for a walk and he was holding his mask and there was no one near him. And like people were like coming out of places to him and said, put on your mask. He wasn't even close to anybody. So it's like the difference between California and Georgia.
California shuns you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I that's what I'm saying. So I think for a lot of people, this hasn't hit them yet. Like it hasn't hit them yet. And I think that's where like politics and everything, your friends, your family, like everyone has an opinion, and then it gets to a certain point where you're just like, I give up. What do I do? Like who do I follow?
Yeah. So one of the things that's always fascinated me is God creates us with this beautiful gift of imagination and creativity. And you find it as a child when you start taking things apart because you want to know. So we deconstruct things, but we kind of want to put them back together, and then there's always parts left over, right? But there's this sense of there's two natural inclinations within humanity, and that first one is to push out and to venture out and to explore. That's why you have to baby-proof your house, because they want to get into everything. They want to see what the boundaries are. The reason a 2-year-old is so overwhelmingly difficult is they're testing the boundary. They're going to push, see how far they can go before you say, all right, that's too far.
Yeah.
That's the way we're wired. And I wonder, the other part of us, that first part's pushing out, but the second part of our human nature is to shelter in place, is to get small, to get shut down, to lock ourselves in, to freeze up. And both are good at times and both can lead to destruction at times. There's a tension between the two. And I thought you and I'd spend a little time, you as a creative person your whole life, thinking in terms of what can you do, how can we work in the sense of all the monotony that we find ourselves, the repetition, to learn how to push out. Because I think creativity is imagination, and I think God gives us the ability to create, and that in and of itself is the ability for humans to create life in art. We create little children, but we
Yeah.
create art, and it's a way that speaks to us that goes beyond that. And the first thing that this particular writer, Susan Peppercorn, I love that name. I don't think it's her real name. It could be. Maybe it is. I mean, it's a pseudonym. It talks about harnessing. The first thing you have to do is learn how to harness negative emotions. Now, think of all the negative emotions people are manifesting in the political upheaval and the racial recalibrations and the economy and and just a pandemic. And I see a lot of people not harnessing the anger to use it for something good, or the frustration, or the anxiety, but they let it fester up and boil up and become emotional. So in a way, the anger could be a good thing.
Yeah.
The anxiety could be redirected into something creative.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of people don't do that. Has anger ever motivated you to be creative?
I think for the first time, this might be for the first time in a lot of people's lives that they are actually reflecting, right? I think that there's some people that have had time to themselves for the first time in their lives, and it kind of freaks them out, right? I love what you said earlier. I'm a big fan of Pittman McGahey. And he says, God loves us so much that he allows us to know what it's like to create. I love, like, when I first heard him say this, like, it was kind of like a mic drop moment for me, because I have been fighting so long, all my life, just to justify being a creative, just to justify saying, I want to be an artist for the rest of my life. And it was cute when I was little, and then when I was 12, but then when I was 15, my mom was like, oh, okay, well, okay.
But honey, you got to make a living.
When I was 17, when I was 20, when I was 24, you know, but this whole time, when this man said this, and he said that people that keep evolving keep playing. It's okay to keep playing. You can keep playing. And I think this time in our lives has been a weird mirror for a lot of people, right? Because for the first time in their life, they have a lot of time in their hands, and they have a lot of times to themselves. And for the first time, they realize, oh my gosh, I haven't been investing in myself, right? I love hanging out with myself. And that came from traveling. That came from me being blessed enough to have traveled to different countries by myself, on a plane by myself, hotels, and just being around just by myself and getting to know myself. I think once you take a purpose away from someone, or what we think purpose is, which is a job, paying bills and things like that, and all of a sudden we're left to ourselves, it's kind of scary, because there's nobody's telling us like what to do. Like, hey,
well, we've never done the work before then to really know who we are.
Yeah.
And so Thomas Merton says, you know, we spend our whole lives looking into a mirror, but what we really see is a shadow of ourselves, what we've created, and we can never move the shadow out of the way to really see ourselves for who we are, because we're always playing a role, we're always putting on a mask. And so now I see that people have, I look at there's so much anger. You know, let's just take the political stuff on both sides. People who are conservative or liberal, whatever. And there's all this anger, and instead of harnessing the anger and somehow leading us to some creative ways to figure things out that we can live in unity, it just becomes toxic. And I think, don't you think passion can lead us to creativity, right? Whether it's anger or grief or sadness. I mean, what is it? Taylor Swift has made a living off of writing songs about breakups with her boyfriend. Am I right? Or am I right? John Mayer's the same way. And then they dated each other and broke up, and then they both wrote a song about each other. So it's like
money.
I think that part of the whole Taylor Swift, John Mayer thing is to like always be breaking up with people to find some motivation or something.
I think a big part of it is that we put so much weight on ourselves to define success, right? And then we have this idea of what success is, and then we give money to that idea, and we give a car to that idea, and a house to that idea, but we don't put ourselves into that idea. Like, where do we fit into that idea? Where does the happiness part come into that idea? To myself, I for some reason, and this is just a kind of crazy thing, is if you're good at what you do, money's gonna come. That's how I always thought.
Enough money will come.
Enough money will come. Yeah, I'm not gonna be balling out of control, but I always thought, like, if you're passionate about it and you have integrity and you're good at what you do and you master your craft, money's gonna come. You're gonna be okay. But just invest in yourself, invest in what you do in that way, but be happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be happy. And so I think that's where the creativity part comes along. It allows you to fail, and it's okay that if you're not automatically going to be good right away at it, right? Poetry, I love poetry because it takes a very special kind of person to tell you that poem that you wrote is a horrible poem, right? It takes a very special kind of person to tell you that. People are going to celebrate the attempt. And that's where the arts is kind of cool, because people that are, I think most people celebrate your attempt. And I think somewhere along the way we stopped attempting because reality hit us, right? And I don't want to be seen as I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't want to seem foolish or things like that. And so I think what this time has done for me, it has allowed me to go back to attempting things, to attempting things that I wasn't good at and I might never be good at, but I'm going to try it, right? So I picked up Portuguese. It's taken me longer than I thought. Like, you know, everyone's like, oh, you speak Spanish, you're going to be okay. No, it's not. If you speak Spanish,
no, they're not the same.
It's not the same. It's hard. But I think to get to a point where it's a good space for you to attempt something.
Well, that's a second point she makes, is engaging in an expressive outlet. And she talks about this this executive that she coached who took up the ukulele.
Yeah.
So you're talking about learning Portuguese. And, you know, I think I've seen people that have taken up baking during the pandemic. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know anything about, I mean, the reason I always like poetry is because I don't know enough to most things in my life I overthink and I deconstruct and I figure out. I'm a systems guy. Mm-hmm. So I kind of think that way. Poetry, I don't know enough to deconstruct it. So that's good for me. So when I hear it, it just makes me feel something. Mm-hmm. Like art. When I look at art, yeah. If I hear a good song, it just makes me feel something. I don't know if it was the right bridge at the right time or the right stroke at the right, I don't know all that stuff. And so I think my ignorance is bliss when it comes to me experiencing poetry or art or music in that way.
You have a very like you can get away with, and people would just be like, that guy
That's
knows.
what I do when I go to the museum and look at the art gallery, which you can't do now, but when you do, I just look at this and I go, and I just stand there, with my arms closed, and I look. And
people are looking at you.
They look at how you look at it. And you can be thinking, man, that Arby's, that was the best sandwich I've had in like months. And yet someone will walk up to you and go, what feelings does this evoke? And I'm like, satisfaction. And I'm just thinking Arby's, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But you look on point.
No, I mean, when we went to, years ago, we took a group here from Chapelwood. We went to Italy on a pilgrimage. We went to Rome and but went to Florence. And you stand there and you're in front of the David, that Michelangelo or whomever, I don't even remember who was it, carved it. It's the big old David.
Michelangelo,
yeah. And I'm standing there watching this thing. I was like, I have grown up seeing this thing in every textbook, in every history class or whatever art class. And I'm standing there in that moment, and I'm just thinking to myself, this thing is, in a picture of your book, it's like this big, right? Yeah. And you see people around it that you don't know, and you get there and you're like, how in the world did that dude sculpt this thing out of rock? And I'm just thinking, how'd they move this thing in here? Start processing stuff like that, And it's like, but I can also just appreciate that this is amazing. When you go in the Sistine Chapel and you see people that are brought to tears.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't brought to tears, but I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking to myself, man, the ornate detail and just the beauty of every little space.
Yeah.
And the thought process in that is,
But I think you hit that right on the head. Like, how many of us appreciate, my mother's favorite artist is Frida Kahlo. And Frida's, she had the biggest collection of her work was in New York. I took my mom to go see it. My mom has never seen an original piece of Frida Kahlo. Everything is some bootleg version of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing she knows about Frida is her image and her story. I remember taking her to the museum, and the first piece, my mom's just staring at it. I'm behind her. She doesn't move for like 20 minutes. I'm like, lady, we gotta go. Like, there's still like 8 more hours of this. We gotta move. Like, you can't take forever. And I walk next to her and I kind of like look at her face, and my mom is just bawling because she is in front of her hero, right? She can see the brushstrokes. She's meeting her hero for the first time. And my mother's the type that, she would tell you, like, I don't belong in a museum. Like, she worked all her life. And so her being in this moment, this is not for people like her.
Wow.
And for her to see her hero in front of her was the most amazing thing ever. And to be honest with you, me staring at her stare at these paintings was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as a creative, sometimes the best thing you can do is watch other people be creative and watch other people's work and just admire it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
And then you watch the impact that has on people you care about. That's got to be powerful.
I think, yeah, but I think spirituality is like that. When you bring someone and you see them come to their own or find themselves, right? Like, my wife is at peace. She loves coming to church. We've been together 12 years. And this is the first time she's like, this is our church. That is so cool to see.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I think sometimes appreciating, admiring, it's just as beautiful as creating. You got to go search for inspiration, because sometimes you never know how inspiration's gonna hit you.
A couple other things she talks about in this article is, I don't really understand. She says, get into a flow state. I don't even know what that means. When you're so completely immersed in an activity that you lose all sense of time.
Yes.
All right, so explain.
It's vibing out. There's this word called cipher. I need you to say cipher.
Cipher?
A cipher. A cipher is when you're creating with other groups of people, and things just flow out of you. Energy flows out of you. Flow is when you are in the zone. So it's basically in the zone, right? When you're writing something, when you're creating something, I'm sure you've created a sermon where it's just your pen doesn't stop.
Yeah, I guess I just haven't thought of it. I mean, even like several weeks ago, we were revisiting Advent and planning, and we were storyboarding and putting up together and sort of going, and things when you're there in the room and we're all spread out, but you're seeing things put up on the board that you've thought together, and it all starts coming together.
That's the cipher.
Like, sacramentally, mystically, and you're like, wait a minute, all these things that we put, they're all connected to the same kind of thing. And I can deeply appreciate that.
And that's the flow. Like, that's when you zone out. That's when you don't care. You're taking the other people out of this equation. It's just you and whatever you're working on, right? And the cool thing about the flow or being in the zone, that you know when to get out of it. Like, you're like, man, that was awesome. Somebody said that there's no finished poems. There's just poems that you walk away from. I like that. I like that, because it just means that you can always go back to it and tweak
See,
it.
sermons are different. I learned you write a sermon, and then you edit it, then you edit it again, then you edit it again, then you edit it again, then you put it away, then you edit it 5 more times, and it's still too long for most people. You know, it's like a good beginning and a good ending. There was a book written about intuition and how we interpret things, and what they did this study on people who had colonoscopies. This is fascinating, by the way. Just so you know, from cars to creativity to colonoscopies. We got the C's going together.
Gotcha.
But what they did was they gave people a little dial, and in real time they could the experience how not necessarily good, but how on what level of bad it was. And what they found was if they had at the beginning or the ending bad experience, in the middle it could have been not bad at all. And then other people could have been really bad in the middle, but at the beginning and the end it was not as bad. And when they evaluated all these people, they said, well, what was the experience like? And the people who had said, oh, it's not that bad, they could have turned it all the way up to like 10, miserable in the middle. But if the ending and the beginning were not as that bad, that's what was indelibly etched in their mind. This is like psychological, sociological. But if the whole experience was good, but at the end it was a bad experience, like just even that much, they would come back and say, it's a horrible experience. And so I'm always made me think about, as I write sermons, the middle can be really horrible, but the beginning and the ending really kind of need to be good.
Like, man, that pastor was horrible, but at the end,
Because they walk out and they go, that was great.
he brought it home at the end.
So that might be helpful, in your poetry too. Just
hit
make
that
sure
high
you-
note.
That's what comedians talk about too, like on Netflix, with how you have to catch people at the beginning and at the end. The middle part, it's like doesn't matter as much.
And good comedians actually do what good storytellers do, and do what good preachers are able to do, where they bookend things. So they introduce something that kind of catches you, and they resolve it at the end. So they kind of put a bow on it, you know,
right.
and sort of tie it all up together. At least there's thematically some tie-in.
I used that exact same form. I did an open mic for a comedy thing at the Improv. My boy was a host. Some dude like flaked out on him. He was like, yo, I need 15 minutes from you. I know you could just pull 15 minutes together. It was like 4 hours before. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Man, 15 minutes is a long time.
That's a long time, especially if you don't know what you're talking about.
15 minutes is a super long time, man. And I was just like, but I did the bookend thing. I tied it from the beginning to the end.
And people have and it's fascinating if you can do that well.
Yeah.
And that first and last part have something really good that catches them, and then you tie it up. They feel like, all right, I just went on a little walk with you, and you dropped me off at a good place.
Yeah.
And so experiential, they walk away with a vibe.
Yeah.
Even if they're like, I don't know what they really said, but I felt good after it was done. So this one I found fascinating. How much do you spend time in nature? A psychological study looked at the impact of nature on creativity and found that spending quality time outside improves people's creative potential. And they did this assessment with 56 people who went on a hiking trip, measured creative potential using word associations. 24 took the test before they went out on the hiking trip, and the other 32 took it on the 4th day. The people in the latter group, after they had already been on the hiking trip, performed much better, and they ultimately found that spending time in nature improved their creativity test scores by 50%. Now, what do you think that's all about?
So one of the biggest teachers in my life has been my mom. And my mom became kind of a hippie for a while. And she would tell us about energy, about how everything's connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a long time, like, she boycotted buying us stuff. But I just thought she was just cheap. But
She had a good excuse.
she did. She's like, why do we need things if we could just hold each other? I'm like, calm down, lady. I need a Nintendo. But she would talk about energy. She would talk about how everything's connected, how we're connected to the trees, how especially nature, like we're always connected And she said, you wake up, you want a beautiful, great day. Then you wake up in that energy, and that energy is gonna follow you. The universe is gonna align for you. For some reason, man, I follow that. I follow that. I think like the energy and the connectiveness to like things. There are people that are naturally outdoorsy. Like they're just naturally outdoorsy. Like my kids are like, my daughter's naturally outdoorsy.
They end up moving to Colorado usually.
Yeah.
I'm serious. All my friends who like just want to be outside all the time, they end up in Colorado.
There's the arbor. I'm gonna kill this word.
Arboretum.
Arboretum, right there on at Memorial.
The Arby's.
Yeah.
You just the Arby's.
We have the meat.
We have the meat.
But it's an awesome little hike. It's almost like a taste. It's like
Christian
a fix.
Washington just went on that and took some pictures on Instagram.
It's like a fix.
Yeah.
You go and you get your fix, and then you could go back to the concrete.
See, that's what golf is for me, I think. I mean, there's that competitive aspect to it, but there's nothing better than going out and going for a walk, the exercise, and just the reason I like to walk when I play golf, even if I like push a trolley or carry my clubs, is like you're going on a 7-mile walk through nature. You know what I mean? With a little bit of competitiveness thrown into it.
Are you good at golf?
Depends on what day. It just depends on what day. But I do think, I think like when I showed you the cars that talk about bookending a podcast, when we go back to the cars, something about the convertible. So now whenever I go back to Georgia to St. Simon's Island, if I fly in and rent a car, I always want to rent a convertible. I don't want to buy a convertible because they're really not smart cars to have. No. Unless you live at the beach. But I'll rent one just for the week and I drive with the top down. And it's sort of, something got me at a young age, and it's just like when you're riding down the road and you can see the moon, when you can see the stars, when you can see the trees. When you live in a city and you're riding in the car or you're in your house, you forget to just experience that.
To live, man. I think a lot of us miss so many details because we're just so focused on tasks all the time that we stop putting our hand out of the window and just flowing with the wind, you know what I mean? And
we stop playing.
That's
imagination. That's creativity. The reason kids are so good and so creative is they haven't lost imagination yet. The world hasn't taken it away from them yet.
We haven't taken it, and it's us. It's the people closest to you always steal that from you.
Well, they tell you, it's like when you were growing up, you know, you always wanted to be a creative. You always wanted to be an artist. But what do people tell you? At some point, you're going to have to grow up. What does that mean? At some point, you're going to have to give that up. Yeah. You have to get a real job, punching a clock and doing something so you can make a living. Yeah. And so we go, okay, I guess since that's what everybody else does, that's what I'll have to do. And so I think I admire you and a lot of people that are able to chase those dreams and be creative, because there was something inside of you that said, okay, I hear all that, but I'm still going to chase this.
And I started listening, when people give you advice, it's good to pay attention who's giving you advice and how they lead their lives and how happy they are. Because if it's just...
When your dad says, son, you better grow up and go into finance and make a living, and he's like the most miserable person
and
in the
he's
world.
Just like this like just drinking every night and just telling me to
I want to grow up just
and,
like you did.
Yeah, and I think I think my son's 12, and he's either he plays along with us really good every year, but I really think he still believes in Santa.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to me. Like, that's amazing to me because he says it like just, man, getting ready for Santa this year.
And you can edit that out, right?
Yeah, I can edit that out.
For all our young listeners out there. That's why I kept making noise while you were talking.
That guy.
Like,
our demographic is between 5 and 12 years old, so.
But I mean,
every Sunday on the way out, they go, "Really love the podcast this week."
What's that man talking about Santa? No, but I love the idea that he's still into the holidays that much, and like he's still into it. Like he gets hyped, and like my brothers are like, man, I got to keep them away from him, because the second he starts going on this thing, like, here they come, like, you know.
Hey, let me tell you what my mom said, and I believe this, and I've told my kids. There is everybody in my house. Santa is real. I've told people this. Santa Claus is real, and the minute you stop believing in Santa Claus is the year you stop getting presents. And so I'm just telling you, all the grown adults in my house, including me, believe in Santa Claus.
Yo.
I'm just telling you. So,
But Santa is real, though.
you got to get your mind right. Of course he's real.
Of course he's real.
Yes, he is. He's coming too, and not long from now.
But I think at the end of the day, man, we have to feed ourselves. You know, it has to go beyond food and money, and it has to go with these experiences that you might not be good at. I always tell everyone, write a poem, paint. You know, I don't know if you've ever painted with acrylics.
No.
Grabbing paint is awesome, man. Like, getting messy is awesome. Getting, you know, you see abstract and you're like, man, I bet you I can do that. Try it.
No.
Try it.
Oh, I know it's hard. Like,
you know,
Monet?
no, but it's the greatest thing. It's just touching the paint and seeing it go on the canvas. You know, I tell people, man, you're creating something that has never existed before. You know, I think that's cool, man. You know, it's just for you. Try it. Go buy a canvas. Go buy some paint. Put it on that canvas and just watch it go on. And it is such a great feeling. And get away from yourself.
I think that's the key that I have not done, and I think it's important for all of us, is how do you, one of the points she makes, broaden your network. How do you move outside of all the things you typically do, and try something completely different?
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been so busy during this season, and I've been trying to take really good care of myself, but I haven't really pushed that adventure button. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's in time that, you know,
you have
figure
to,
something
man.
out.
But I mean, that's what it is. I think it's about getting away from yourself, getting away from the people that will laugh at you, trying to get away from yourself, getting around people that will allow you to get away from yourself. My goal in life is to drink green tea and do yoga. I honestly think that's the secret to getting to 115 years old, because I have seen some people that man, they just got it figured out, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's key. If you can allow yourself to get away from yourself and forgive yourself for being clumsy, go dance, be offbeat, man. Take a dance class, take salsa. Take tango. I want to learn tango. And
We took my wife Stephanie and I took a dance class in college.
In
Together.
college.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But we did the polka and the salsa and the tango and the marimba. I don't know.
How did you feel?
Very awkward. But when you're that age, you don't care.
You don't care.
You do. It's like now. I think that's the other thing too. It's like, I think the word we can kind of end with in today is like, wherever we are now feeling constrained or constricted by all of these really these heavy stuff, it's like, can we return to those carefree days as children where, you know, the backyard was the surface of the moon?
Oh my gosh.
Where your front street was the Daytona 500, you know, where the closet in your room was the secret cave where the wild things lived. You know, I mean, if we can just as adults kind of break out of some of the rationality and the reasonability, just all that for a little while, and kind of just find some wonder and joy. I think that's deeply tied theologically to Sabbath.
Yeah.
Because Sabbath is all about worship, rest, and delight. And I think that third part of delight is where we find recreation or recreation and play. Play is not, what I've had to learn too is like going out and playing golf. That's not really play for me. That becomes like something I have to accomplish. I have to shoot a certain score or whatever. There's not like play is like there's no purpose to it.
Yeah.
When you go play in the sandbox,
Yeah.
there's no end game.
Yeah.
No one wins or loses. You're
Yeah.
building your experience. And I think that's, if we're going to get back into the divine spark that's in us, that God placed in us, we're going to have to find, recapture imagination and creativity, and just let some of the boundaries of all the walls that we've constructed because everybody told us we had to do this and be this and all that, we turned into robots that all look the same. And so I hope people can learn from Marlon today how to be creative. Any famous creative, anything creative to leave us with? Something creative. That's a lot of pressure.
That is a lot of. That's like being a comedian to like make me laugh.
It's like, yeah.
No, I do want to leave everybody. I think with all the heaviness that is going on, especially with the elections and the outcome of the elections, and I think everybody's so party heavy right now. I do want to say this, man. I think we need to go back to being human beings again, like just respecting each other and connecting with each other again. I love people. I am a fan of people. I like grumpy people. I like funny people. I like people that always have a joke. I like awkward people. Oh, awkward people are the best. I love awkward people. I think let's go back to loving people and no matter what happens, man, I think respecting people, and I hope that whatever happens, I know that half of the people are going to be upset, but I think we have family that is on that other side, and we have to love them no matter what. And so
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's like, so when you get on the other side of this, and if you're on the side that doesn't come out where you think you should, there's going to be some grief and some anger. How do you harness that and turn it into something creative and imaginative and positive that helps us bring each other together instead of letting it take you down some pathway that's destructive? That's what sets us apart to being the people God created us to be, I think, versus the people that God just is grieving over us being sometimes.
I'm just going to write a 30-minute poem.
30-minute poem?
30-minute poem.
Okay.
But it's only going to have 10 words in it. It's going to have long pauses.
Long pauses.
Long pauses.
In the Psalms, it's Selah.
Yeah, there you go. Selah.
And who knows? The thing is, when you read the Psalms, you don't know how long that pause is supposed to last. For all I know, it could be 30-minute rest, between. We just kind of go, and you, O Lord, happy are the days, Selah, when we rest in you, Selah. And it's like, whoa, Selah means stop, take a break. We don't do that.
Nice.
Hey, I've enjoyed being with you today.
I love being with you today.
What's better than love? He's like one up to me. I adore.
Okay. I learned a lot from you today.
I was so ecstatically pleased to be with you today. I love you, Marlon, and I'm praying for you. And
yes,
thanks for sharing some of your creative heart with us.
Thank you, guys, and stay up, man.
We got it. I'm John Stevens.
I'm Marlon Lizama.
And this is Pod Have Mercy.